all, I am far more of a public spectacle than a public speaker. So we will get through this and Jesus, right. I want to call out first of all my babies. Preston and Atlas, where are my youth group? They are fucking amazing. I will be looking mostly at my emotional support phone, anybody that knows me. So, walking into the energy generated from Jim, a local legend who has such a rich history and story to tell, and future legends, Atlas and Preston, whose courage inspires, makes this a lot easier. It's easy for one group of humans to hold disdain, unacceptance, and even hate for another group of humans. And the second group is only an abstract concept to the first group. But a change of mindset and acceptance can result from personifying the abstract concept and making a connection. Our shared stories build connections and allow us to discover commonalities, personifying one another. Brene Brown said, "When we find the courage to share our experiences and the compassion to hear others tell their stories, we force shame out of hiding and in the silence." Well, for almost the first half century of my life, I did not live my authentic self. And those who knew me then, and those who know me now, have described it to me as having sort of a camouflage of sadness and anger, hiding my eyes and hiding my soul from the world. But in the last 3 years, I've been nothing but my authentic self. I understand that my gender is not an element of my identity. It just is. I do not allow my gender or my sexuality to be my story, to define me. But owning it, enforcing out the shame and ending the silence allows me control over how the next half century of my life will be written. Thus allowing my eyes to show the true nature of my soul, and my smile, my joy, and my love. And on this stage tonight, in a venue with so much history, I can smile, my smile, knowing the history of holding my breath is in my rearview mirror. But it didn't happen overnight. There was a first time. There's always a first time. A time where, exhausted from forcefully smothering your very being, you finally take that first step toward living an authentic life. And for me, it was a cold, misty winter night in Savannah, Georgia. Almost a decade, over a decade ago. For me, it was the most hideous brown sweater dress I could find. It had a collar that came up to my neck and almost over my chin. For me, it was a cheap pair of generically sized boots I grabbed off a hanger from Rue 21. For me, it was a makeup presentation comically exposing my lack of experience in makeup application. For me, it was deciding to finally step out of the second floor door of a Best Western hotel off of River Street, maybe you may know it, and publicly presenting myself. Oh, but for me, it was also stepping right back inside that door 2 seconds later. I stepped outside that door, and the parking lot was full of fucking cops and crowds and just all kinds of stuff. some kind of issue going on. I stepped right back inside. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to wear. I knew what I would do, but I was not prepared to interact. I stared out that little peephole for about 30 minutes. The cops dispersed the crowd, made some arrests, did some things. The parking lot eventually emptied, and I stepped back out. The place I decided to go to no longer exists. It was called Chuck's. It was a bar in Savannah in downtown. It's one of those where you have to park in the neighborhood. It was down an alley. So I drove to it. Parked in the neighborhood, the only place I could find. So I park. It's a cold winter night, remember that? I go to get out and there's a party going on in the house I parked beside. This son of a bitch walks out to smoke a cigarette. Again, I can't interact. I got back in the car and waited. He said, smoke a cigarette. I used to smoke 5 minutes. He smoked and smoked for 20 minutes. I sat in the car and almost lost my nerve. Eventually, he went back inside. I jumped out of my car and I ran toward the alley. A little dimly lit alley. It was dirty. I could hear the click, click, click of those cheap-ass boots. As I walk up to where the stairs are you have to walk around, come up. There's a guy hanging off the rail at the top of the stairs. I look up and he looks down at me and says, "Oh, girl." Now I'll never know what he meant or how he meant it. Because all I know is it turned my ass around. I went running back to my room, back to my car, back to the hotel. In the room, I decided, I want to go. I want to go to Chuck's. I want to see what it's like. Whatever. I'm going to get out. I took off that hideous brown sweater dress. I took off those cheap boots. I took off my nail polish. I took off my makeup. Learning a lesson that makeup should be removed from makeup remover. not hotel soap. I put on something I was comfortable in at the time, and I was confident, walking out of that room with a red face. But I got in my car, I drove the neighborhood just fine. I parked. I had no problem wandering down that dirty alley that time. Got to the steps, I walked around. Set of brick steps, kind of slippery with the mist and the cold. Had an iron railing that was cold and wet. Hold the railing, I'll crawl up the stairs, stand outside that door. I take a deep breath. I step inside. It was a large rectangular space, just one big rectangle. The bar was to my left. It was about half the size of the room. Had bar stools going down it. Throughout the room, had bar tables and stools, and some dartboards. Had a big open area at the front of the room, I assume for shows and such. It's about the size of this rectangle right here. I looked around the room and saw, oh wait, there are other transgender women here. I walked up to the bar, looked at the bartender, he comes over with a beautiful smile and says, "Hey, what can I get for you?" And I said, "You know what, I do want something, but I'll be right back. I'll be right back." Renewed, I went back out that door, down those nasty steps, down that nasty alley to my car, back to the room. And yes, I put back on that hideous brown sweater dress. I put back on those cheap boots, and that nail polish, and that horrible, god-awful makeup presentation. I drove back to that bar. I parked back in that neighborhood. Walked back down that alley, confidently up those stairs. One big deep breath. I walked in the door. I walked up to the bartender. I smiled. He smiled. And he looks me in the eye and he says, "You look better." look better. And in that moment, I felt the first free breath of my life. In that moment, I felt the first expression of comfortable authenticity. And although I knew there would still be a long path to travel, I had found my voice, and I knew it didn't have to be loud to be heard. The next half century of my life will be lived unshackled. My soul can shine, my love will be shared, and my spirit is free. I've overcome the fear referenced in the quote from Brene Brown, and I've made my voice fierce, unapologetic, but humble. Now, how can you do this courageously while you still feel vulnerable, as I do? Well, I embrace another quote from Joel Goodson, if you remember him. He was the character Tom Cruise played in Risky Business. He said, sometimes you gotta say what the fuck and make your move. And I did.